Atomic Picnic is a new co-op and solo addition to the ever-expanding list of titles within the popular action roguelike genre that really seems to have a good idea as to what it wants to be in terms of a fast-paced and heavily engaging game that has you being swarmed from every single angle, dodging explosions, projectiles, and never really keeping yourself stationary. So if you're somebody with a very short attention span that needs hundreds of things happening at any given time, this will definitely grab your attention quite quickly. The developers themselves appear to be highly engaged in active discussions about how they can change and fix the game throughout this early access phase to their Discord to really bring out the full potential, which is really nice to see that they do actually care about their game. It has a genuine sensation of being similar to Risk of Rain 2 without being a downright clone, and yes, I'm sure you're tired of hearing that same phrase thrown around all of the time by everybody else with any other game, but this is actually how it actually feels. Nothing has ever felt so comparable in terms of player momentum, build-up, and impact through itemization, while also maintaining a distinctness that does not feel like a superficial imitation. Despite the fact that while the game itself plays excellently, there have been many concerns that have shown themselves within the first 5 hours of gameplay. I'm the type of player that really just loves to mess around, oftentimes exploiting a game's flaws, bugs, and glitches when I find them, and there are no shortage of issues here within Atomic Picnic's early access. The most damning thing is the progression. I was under the impression that you would be able to actually play as one of the other 3 characters outside of Ash, but there is no real understanding as to how to unlock the other characters. So you have to play the game for a couple of hours to unlock the relatively useless board unlocks that do not provide you with much of anything. Just a few pebbles and weapons, though you will find yourself probably using the same default gun, and maybe swapping out the grenade mod for fire since it's pretty strong when it comes to solo play. I really just wanted to play as Bonnie, the character that just seems more compelling in their design. They might even have better movement speed than the others, I don't know, but I was determined to unlock her, and after 5 hours of constantly struggling through the hordes of enemies solo until I unlocked more power-ups and got a good run that I could actually do damage with, I then unlocked the prerequisite that unlocks the hidden goal, which when I looked at it completely pushed me away from ever wanting to continue that grind. To unlock Bonnie, you must dash through an enemy's projectile or damage 80 times. I felt like this was a little bit excessive considering the cooldown on dashes and the skills. I could put up with maybe 10, 15, or 20, but seriously, 80 is a bit too much. I say this because on average, just playing the game normally for 30 minutes trying to dash through damage until you get overwhelmed by the snakes or explosive enemies, I was able to accomplish this 5 to 7 times. Which means I have to play for another 4 to 5 hours if I want to unlock that character, and even more hours to figure out how to unlock the other 2. This isn't a fun feature when they too will most likely have something stupid that needs to be unlocked in this manner rather than being unlocked with pebble currency, which would require much less of a grind. You might say that it's not that big of a deal. Well, to put it into simple terms, it took me 5 hours to unlock this prerequisite because playing solo is unbalanced 90% of the time. It feels like you have to play with others to have a fighting chance or use any of the exploits to survive and get a strong enough build that can melt everything. So after unlocking the goal for Bonnie, 0 progression was allocated to it, so in general it's looking like you have to invest 10 to 20 hours to unlock any specific one of those characters. I don't know about you, but I think that should be changed. Moving on to the gameplay issues, there are several bugs and exploits that can make or break the game, like standing near or on a tree or ledge will disable all enemies and cause them to spawn right on top of you, making farming much easier. But it will not prevent bosses or any of the other mini-bosses from killing you when they spawn. If you don't get a good build and max it up early, you'll find yourself unable to kill the snakes quickly enough and become overwhelmed, as it doesn't seem tailored for solo play. The developers are aware of these concerns, and while you will ultimately get stronger, it is still very frustrating. It really does feel like a game that you have to play with others, but in order to do so, you have to join their Discord server or invite your friends directly to join since there is no online modes or lobbies. But even so, you are all still limited to the character Ash until the other characters are unlocked. I wouldn't really call it a bullet hell, but there is a lot going on if you start making major progress by leveling up and achieving the mission's objectives, which are very basic at the moment. Like leveling up to level 10, then killing some elite snakes or snacks as they mistranslate it, before moving on to a few random tasks of various difficulty that have you running around, followed by the level's boss. I want to say that it does become repetitive depending on the run. Due to different builds, it can become more tedious due to the density of the snakes popping up as you try to avoid their projectiles, which normally takes you away from their current position, making it very annoying when you get a very weak build or a severe lack of AoE to deal with them before they head underground and become untargetable. It just appears that you at the very least require specific curios to have a fighting chance, such as HP, crit, and or anything that provides you with additional damage or projectiles. This is because your base damage will be anywhere from 6 to 12 depending on whether you have an upgrade or not, whereas these extra effects will provide you with over 300 damage on crit, which is absolutely insane and felt necessary when your main goal is wanting to succeed. Mobility is your primary source of survival unless you obtain some decent curio upgrades that increase your jump height and movement speed. Otherwise, you will have to be using the limited amount of aerial dodges and dashes sparingly, which is difficult when you're completely surrounded surrounded, and you must keep moving as enemies spawn on top of you and all around you, leading their shots where you'll be next. This is going to keep you on your toes, but it may get tiresome on bad runs. When I play video games, I do it because they are enjoyable and can keep me entertained for many hours, compelling me to want to come back because it's simply fun. I keep feeling myself drawn back to Atomic Picnic despite its many flaws, because it's one of those few games with very catchy but simple music and engaging gameplay, and it can only become more fun in the future if they continue to listen to complaints and make improvements for user accessibility and progression. I would much rather a feature that allows for us to find others online rather than having to join another Discord server to find people to play with, or to have to convince my friends to pick up the game and in the end be stuck going through numerous hoops to find somebody. Not everybody likes this kind of system. I don't want it to be the norms. In its current state of early access, there is still more to be desired before I can fully recommend it, but if you can overlook the unbalanced solo gameplay, bugs, and many other issues, it's shaping up to become a pretty fantastic game to play with friends.